Welcome back to Dad Mode, God, Grit, and Goals. I'm your host, Mike Tobias, and I'm excited about today's episode. We're going to cover kind of the biblical wisdom and how it relates to AI and parenting. So buckle up, get ready. Sometimes I watch my grandkids running circles around their parents, my own kids, and I can't help but chuckle. It's like the future is on fast forward, and I'm just trying to keep up. And as I'm watching this, it gets me thinking about the world they're going to grow up in. The technology, the fast pace, it's incredible, but it's also a bit overwhelming, especially when you start thinking about the role we play in shaping it, especially through artificial intelligence. Let me ask you a question. Have you ever stopped to think about the kind of world that we're building? We're building AI systems that might outsmart us one day. And I think that future is going to come a lot faster than we think. It's kind of like how my kids thought they'd outsmart me when they figured out the remote. But this is happening at a much larger scale. But here's the serious part. Just like we've spent years raising our kids to handle this wild, TikTok-filled world, we now find ourselves raising AI systems, shaping how they interact with the world around them. You heard that right. We're the proud parents of the next generation of artificial intelligence. And just like our kids, these AI offspring will eventually make decisions we may not fully grasp or be in or able to control. So today I want to chat about that. How do we as parents and as grandparents wrap our heads around this responsibility? How do we make sure that the values we hold dear, the ones we've tried with varying degrees of success to pass on to our kids, that these are also instilled in the AI that's shaping our future? So grab your coffee or maybe something stronger, and let's dive into this brave new world together. Let's start by taking a little trip down memory lane, maybe Sunday school, if you will. Lately, I've been reflecting on Proverbs 22:6. It's a verse many of us know well. Train up a child in the way they should go, and when they are old, they will not depart from it. It's a powerful reminder. I can't tell you how many times my wife and I recited that to ourselves while we were raising our 6 little rascals. With my own grandkids running around, that verse is more than a saying. It's a daily reality. But here's the twist. What if that wisdom applied not to just kids, but to artificial intelligence? You see, just as we guide our children, we actually have the power to steer these AI systems in a direction we choose. Does that surprise you? Let me explain. AI isn't some mysterious machine with a mind of its own. We design, we program, and we teach it, just like we guide our kids. There are AI systems that learn how to drive, and we are teaching them by all the driving we do that isn't on autopilot. The values that we embed in these artificial intelligence systems, they come from us. Much like how we influence our kids by teaching them right from wrong and hoping they're going to remember it when they're out of sight, we can influence AI by embedding our values into its very code. Think about it. When you're teaching little Timmy not to stick his finger in the electrical outlet, you're steering his behavior for his own good and everyone else's. When developers build AI, they teach it what to value and how to make decisions, just like we try to teach our kids. So that proverb from Proverbs, isn't just about parenting flesh and blood anymore. It's a blueprint for how we can and should guide the development of AI by training up these systems with strong ethical values. Values like fairness, honesty, and hopefully a dash of common sense, which we seem to be lacking a lot of these days. We set them on a path that benefits everyone. I think the key here is intentionality. Just as we don't leave our kids to figure out life all on their own, at least not until they've paid off their student loans, we shouldn't leave AI to develop without our guidance. We have the responsibility and the ability to steer these technologies in a direction that reflects the best of what we have to offer. So yes, we can steer AI just like we guide our children. It's about instilling the right values from the get-go and being mindful of the lessons we're teaching, whether that's at the dinner table or in lines of code. So let's shift gears here for a second. I want to talk to you about a term that I've heard with respect to AI. You may have heard it. It's called hyperintelligence. Right now, AI systems are operating at a level of, I would say, a college graduate. Hyperintelligence is around the corner. It sounds like a superhero power, right? It's not about X-ray vision or flying, though that'd be pretty cool. It's about AI systems that might surpass human intelligence in both thinking and problem solving. Now, before you roll your eyes and say, Mike's been watching too many sci-fi, hear me out. We're actually not far from having AI systems that can communicate and process information just like C-3PO from Star Wars. In fact, we might be closer to that reality than we think. I believe we're probably just a few years away. Think about it. When the kids started beating me at video games, which was pretty early, it was a humbling moment. It's that classic moment when the student surpasses the teacher. And in a way, we're seeing that same thing happen with AI. In the world of AI, these systems learn and adapt faster than we can imagine. We've reached a tipping point. It's like watching your toddler go from babbling to hacking your smartphone in a week. Except imagine that speed of learning applied to everything, everywhere. And here's the kicker. Not everyone realizes we have a say in how these systems develop. Just like with our kids, we can guide AI toward positive outcomes or let it drift into dangerous, unethical territory. If we're not paying attention, things could go very wrong. And so my aim in this podcast is to bring this to your attention, because these are the topics that we need to discuss. And we're not discussing them in this political turmoil that we're in. This just seems to be happening in the background, and we kind of just think it is what it is and business as usual. But just like C-3PO is programmed with protocols to serve and assist, we have the responsibility to program AI with our own values. Things like fairness, empathy, and responsibility. We might not get a droid with a British accent serving tea anytime soon, but the essence of creating helpful, ethical AI companions is certainly within our reach. I know the idea of AI surpassing human intelligence can make some people uneasy. To be honest, it makes me a bit uneasy. Images of rogue robots and dystopian futures come to mind. But let's pause for a moment and consider the reality, not the science fiction. The reality is we have an opportunity to shape AI in a way that reflects our best qualities. Just like our kids develop their own independence, sometimes more than we'd like when it comes to curfews and chores, AI will develop its own kind of independence too. The key is to guide this independence with strong moral and ethical principles. We need to make sure AI reflects values like empathy and fairness and respect for others. So what are we really creating? We're not just building smarter gadgets. We're building systems that will be partners in shaping the future of humanity. Partners that can help us solve complex problems. Partners that will improve lives and maybe even teach us a thing or two along the way. Without our guidance, AI might end up reflecting the worst of us instead of the best. Let's be honest, the last thing we need is a machine that picks up our worst habits, like ignoring stop signs or starting a Twitter fight. So let's be intentional. Let's make sure we're steering these hyper-intelligent systems toward a future we can all be proud of, just like with our kids. The work we put in today will shape the world of tomorrow. All right, so we've established that we're now the proud and slightly anxious parents of hyper-intelligent AIs, our own C-3POs minus the British accent. Or who knows, maybe they'll come with that too. I'm certain they can. I've already taught my Alexa to speak as an Australian. That's kind of fun. How do we actually instill values into these AI systems? It's not like we can sit them down for a classic talk, the one about making good choices and avoiding things that end up online forever. This is where our parenting experience comes in handy. You remember those life lessons, teaching right from wrong, encouraging empathy, promoting responsibility? Well, believe it or not, those same principles apply when we're raising AI. First, let's talk about teaching them right from wrong. With our kids, it's all about setting clear rules and consequences. Finish your homework, you can go out. Skip it, and it's extra chores. For AI, we're doing something similar, only we're programming those values directly into their systems, so they can make decisions based on the moral rules that we set. So we've got to be really careful about who's setting up these rules. Next up, empathy. Now, I know what you're thinking, Mike. Machines can't feel. And you're right. AI doesn't have emotions, but we can program it to recognize and respond to ours, to understand the impact of its actions on people. Kind of like teaching you to think twice before you accidentally ate your little brother's dessert. Responsibility is another big one. Just like we taught you to own up to your own actions, like when you finally admitted to breaking the neighbor's window, we can design AI to be transparent and accountable. This means programming them to explain their decisions, to show their reasoning, which is key to building trust. Here's the important thing. Not everyone realizes we can actually steer these systems. We're not just bystanders watching AI grow on its own. We have the tools to guide its development, much like we guided you through the ups and downs of adolescence and lived to tell the tale. One practical way we do this is through what's called ethical algorithms. Think of these like the ground rules for AI, just like the house rules of no phones at dinner or no dessert before the veggies. We set clear guidelines for what's acceptable behavior. We also create AI governance frameworks. That sounds fancy, but it's really just guidelines and oversight to make sure AI is developed and used responsibly. It's like how society has laws and regulations to keep things in order. At least that's the attempt most of the time. And we can't forget transparency in AI decision-making. It's important we understand how AI reaches its conclusions, especially when those decisions impact people's lives. It's like when you'd argue for a later curfew, we might not always agree, but at least we knew your reasoning, even if it was a bit shaky. By applying these lessons from parenting, we're not just hoping AI turns out okay. We're actively guiding it. We're embedding values like honesty, responsibility, and productivity into its core. At the end of the day, it's all about being intentional. We didn't leave your upbringing to chance. even if it felt like it at times. And we can't leave AI development to chance either. By steering these technologies thoughtfully, we're shaping a future where AI isn't just smart, but also aligned with the values we care about. And who knows? Maybe one day our AI kids will look back and thank us for the guidance. Though I wouldn't hold my breath for a Father's Day card from a robot. All right, let's flip the coin here and look at the risks of not instilling strong values in these AI systems, because let's face it, when profit's the only goal, things can go off the rails faster than a toddler on a sugar rush. Let's look at the tech industry as an example. Thinking about social media platforms and how they've been designed to maximize engagement. You ever wonder why it's so hard to put your phone down, even when you know you should? These platforms are built on algorithms that prioritize clicks and views, not necessarily what's best for the users. In fact, TikTok operates within China completely different than it operates outside of China. In China, you are only able to get educational information on TikTok, and they have long-form content on it. They're using their algorithms for good. While here in the good old US, TikTok is being used for short attention span and things that aggravate us and engage us. Think about that for a moment. It's not about how can we make people more informed and build stronger communities. That isn't the goal of these systems. Instead, it's how can we keep people on the platform longer? And the result, we've seen spikes in issues like social isolation, mental health struggles, and the spread of misinformation. It's like giving someone endless notifications. They're glued to their screens. I've turned notifications off on my phone. If you haven't done that, I would recommend it, because it is constantly vying for your attention. We're glued to our screens. But the long-term consequences for a society that has been grown up that way, it's not so great. Now imagine applying this same profit-driven approach to AI. And OpenAI has gone from a nonprofit to a for-profit organization. This troubles me. If we develop AI systems solely to increase revenues or engagement without considering the ethical implications, we could end up with technologies that exploit users, invade privacy, or manipulate behavior in harmful ways. It is a slippery slope, and we're all holding devices that are practically designed to make us slip. We've seen how important it is to align business practices with the well-being of individuals and communities. If tech companies had prioritized user well-being alongside profits from the start, we might have healthier relationships with our digital lives today. Similarly, if we embed ethical values into AI development from the beginning, we can avoid a future full of unintended negative consequences. So the Bible gives us pretty clear warning about this kind of thing. If you look at Ephesians 6, verse 4, it says, "Do not exasperate your children. Instead, bring them up in the training and instruction of the Lord." In other words, don't set them up for failure by neglecting their moral guidance. Applying that to AI, if we raise these systems without instilling strong values, we shouldn't be surprised when they act in ways that exasperate or even harm us. We have to guide their development with wisdom, not just raw intelligence or desire for quick profits. So what's the takeaway? Well, unfortunately, we need to stay vigilant about the intentions behind AI development. If monetary gain is the sole driver without ethical considerations, we're setting ourselves up for a host of unintended and potentially harmful consequences. It's up to us to make sure that as we build these powerful technologies, we're not just asking how much money can this make, but also kind of impact will this have on people? And at the end of the day, technology should serve humanity, not the other way around. So let's learn from the missteps of the tech industry. Let's make sure we're not handing over the keys to an out-of-control AI without first teaching it the rules of the road. A little foresight now can save us a whole lot of trouble down the line and maybe even help us build a healthier digital future. So after all this talk about risks and responsibilities, you might be wondering, Mike, this is very depressing. Is there any good news? Well, I'm glad you asked, because here's where the hope comes in, and it's not just the dad joke kind of hope. Despite all the challenges and sleepless nights, both from grandparenting and pondering AI ethics, there's something inherently hopeful about this process. I've been thinking back to raising our kids. Sure, there were bumps along the way, like when someone decided the living room wall was a perfect place for a crayon masterpiece, but we always trusted the values we were instilling. We believed that even when we couldn't guide our kids directly, those lessons would stick. And you know what? Seeing the amazing adults they've become, I'd say that trust was well placed. Well, mostly I'm still waiting for some of my tools to be returned, but that's another point. In the same way, we can have hope for the future of AI. If we're intentional about embedding our best values into these systems, things like empathy, fairness, and a sense of justice, we can trust that they'll operate in ways that benefit society. Imagine AI helping us tackle problems that are facing us, like optimizing energy use, or revolutionizing healthcare, or diagnosing diseases earlier than ever before. These aren't far-fetched dreams. They're actual real projects that are being worked on right now. And we can achieve these by thoughtfully guiding AI's development. So I think it's like watching your kids grow up and make a positive impact on the world. There's a sense of pride and fulfillment knowing that in some small way you contributed to that. Similarly, as AI starts solving problems and improving lives, we can take comfort in knowing our efforts help shape that future. Now, I know some of you might still be skeptical, but Mike, what if things go wrong? Well, that's always possible, both in parenting and technology. But that's no reason to give up. If anything, it's a reason to stay engaged, to keep refining the values we instill, and to keep the conversation going. And let's not forget the power of community. Just like it takes a village to raise a child, it's going to take a global effort to steer AI in the right direction. By collaborating, sharing ideas, and holding each other accountable, we can amplify the positive impact we're trying to achieve. So here's the hope, not just wishful thinking, but a proactive roll-up-your-sleeves kind of hope, the kind that believes in the potential for good and is willing to put in the work to make it happen. After all, if we could survive teenage angst, lost homework, and questionable fashion trends, I'm confident we can navigate the age of AI together. And who knows, maybe our AI kids will help make the world a better place for us, for you and for those of us who are blessed enough to have grandkids. We've covered quite a bit of ground today, from Proverbs to programming, from raising kids to raising AI. Who knew they'd have so much in common? As we wrap up, I want to bring it all back home with some thoughts on God, grit, and goals in this age of artificial intelligence. Through all of life's journeys, whether it's parenting, grandparenting, or navigating the brave new world of AI, what keeps us grounded are our values and our faith. These are the constants when everything else seems to be changing faster than the latest tech. God teaches us the importance of love, compassion, integrity. These aren't just old-fashioned ideals. They're the building blocks of a healthy society, and I believe the blueprint for building responsible AI. And if we can embed these timeless principles into the technologies we create, we're not just advancing technologically, we're evolving ethically. And then there's grit, the perseverance to keep moving forward, even when the road ahead isn't clear. Raising 6 kids certainly took grit. The same grit applies to navigating AI ethics. It takes determination to ask hard questions, to challenge the status quo, and to push for solutions that benefit everyone. And let's not forget about goals. Setting clear, meaningful objectives gives us direction. Whether it's striving to be a better parent, a better person, or developing AI that enhances human well-being, goals keep us focused on what matters. They're our North Star, guiding our decisions and our actions. So, as we venture further into this age of AI, I think it's imperative that we lean in on our faith, that we lean in on our grit and our goals. We set goals to shape a future that we can be proud of, a future where technology serves humanity in the best possible ways. Let's be intentional about the legacy we're leaving, not just for our kids and grandkids, but for generations to come. After all, we're all in this together. And who knows? Maybe one day when our AI offspring are running the show, they'll look back and say, hey, these folks really knew what they were doing. Or at the very least, they did their best and left us with some pretty good dad jokes along the way. So here's to embracing the challenges and opportunities ahead with open hearts and open minds. Let's keep the conversation going, keep learning and keep growing, both as individuals and as a global community. Thanks for joining me on this journey, and until next time, remember our 4 core truths. God is good. Jesus has forgiven you. You are loved, and everything is possible. Have a great day.